Hey, this is McKay with Survey Central, where we help you stay on grade. Today, I'd just like to take a second and make a quick video about how to start a base station. After this, I'll make another one about how to set your rover up and hook your rover up to it. But first, let's get our base station going. So, there's two different kinds of bases that we use here. The first, and one that most people have, will be the Topcon Hiper VR. It looks like this. It's square. The second will be just the Topcon Hiper V, and you'll know that what that one is because it'll be round and it'll have the antenna poking down instead of up like this one. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn it on. So you push and hold the power button until that little satellite light there lights up. Now we're inside here, so it's not going to work, but the steps will be the same. So we'll just set that to the side. And then you're going to want to determine if you're going to set your base up on the permanent base pole on the project, which is what you're going to be doing almost 90% of the time. Occasionally we'll have some crews like the curb machine crew, they like to be independent from everyone else working on site, so a lot of times they'll set their own base up on a point on the ground just to keep that independence from everyone. That way they can set up and take down whenever they need to. So another important thing to note here, you'll notice on my data collector here, I'm on the blanding site. And see where it says base trailer and it's in the middle of the building there? That's the very first base that we set up for the project. And when we set up a project for survey, for some reason, when you start your base in an unknown location and get the project set up, the first base that you put in just shows up on the project wherever it wants to be. It doesn't matter where it actually is. And so some projects you'll see it'll be way out in the middle of nowhere. And so that's just kind of one important thing to know. If it's a second or a third or a fourth or whatever base that's shot in later on in the project, it will show up in the correct location. I'm not quite sure why that is. That's just the way this Topcon system works. So we'll find our base pole. We'll screw our base down on top of it. Now we're going to go to Control, GPS Base Station. Now you'll see this little dot down here that says Known Control Point. Make sure that's checked. And then we'll click the drop down and choose the base or the control point that we want to set up on. This one's base trailer. So we'll set that and then click Next. Next you'll see on here the antenna type. So since this is one of the newer square ones, we're going to leave this on Topcon Hiper VR. If you had one of the round ones, you'd click this drop down and you'd change it to Topcon Hiper V. So we've got a VR here, so we're going to change that back. Now your antenna height, if you're set up on a permanent base pole, that will always be 0. And we do that just to make it easy on everyone, and especially because the grade around it could be changing as time goes on. So if we set the initial base height at 0 on a permanent base pole, you never have to measure the height of that base pole because that could change over time as work goes on around it. But if you're setting up on a point in the ground, then you'll set your base up on your survey rod, and then you will have to measure the height above that point that your base is. And you just measure to the very bottom of this plate. It's the same if you've got one of the round ones. You can measure to the bottom of the plate of that round one. And then you measure that, you put that measurement into the antenna height here. And then that's always going to be measured to base. And if you're wondering what that measurement height goes to, you can click the image on here and see here it shows you. So now I'll click Next. The connection type will be Bluetooth. Now I always connect to that base as my base. So you'll see the little serial number down there under Bluetooth. That's the serial number of my base. If you need to connect to a different one that's not showing up there, if you click that Discover, it'll bring up a list of different serial number of bases / rovers in the area, and then you can select the one that you want. So I'm going to click Next here, or radio type. If we've got one of those square ones I was showing you, you're going to leave this on R2 Lite SS, if you have one of the round ones, you're going to drop that down and you want to change that to Topcon FH915SS. Now I'll show you what that looks like here. It's not going to show up on mine because I have that antenna type set to Hyper VR, but we'll show you what that looks like here real quick. That Topcon FH915SS. And then if you have one of the round ones that goes along with this, you want to leave that on serial port C. The baud rate will be 38,400. The format will be RTCM 3.x. Your output rate will always be 1 second. So I'll go back and just change this really quick. And then if you have the square ones, you can see it's already set. You don't have to change your modem port or your baud rate. The format stays on RTCM 3.x. Your output rate stays on 1 second. So now to set the channel, we're going to go ahead and click configure. Now you'll see it's connecting to my base. Okay, so now we'll go through this list really quick. The radio mode, that should be on base. If you click that drop down, you can see it can be off, a rover, a base, or a repeater. We're setting up a base, so we're going to leave it as base. Power output, you want 1000 milliwatts for the maximum range. Link rate, always leave that on 9600. RTS/CTS should be on. Your channel, this is where you select the channel number you want. You've got 1 through 10. Now the protocol, this one, there is 2 choices. You can either choose FH915 or FH915 Plus. As long as every machine and rover that you have is running the same protocol, it's kind of like setting the channel. As long as everything's running the same, it'll work. Everything has to be set the same. Now, the advantage to FH915 is that you get longer range out of it. I'm not quite sure why. Everyone thinks FH915 Plus is better, but 915 gets longer range. The downfall to it is that we do have some older excavators that do not support FH915. So if you've got some of the older excavators on your site, that won't work. The other benefit, if you run FH915 Plus, you can set up multiple units on site as repeaters and go farther. FH915 does not support using repeaters. So if you're using that, you can't have any of those on your site. And to do that, you just do the same setup. You just set that radio mode as a repeater, and then you can set one of these units up anywhere on your site, on any pole, anywhere. You don't have to do anything. You just connect to it and tell it it's a repeater on the same channel on FH915 Plus, and it'll repeat your signal and you can get more range. We don't do that very often just because that requires having more of these. Most of the time, we'll just set another base pole that's close to where you're working. So I'm going to go ahead and click set. Now those are set. And then the last thing you'll click is next. And then you'll see these boxes here. Look at the ones that are checked, and you'll just always leave those same ones checked. You don't have to, don't make sure there's none of these other ones that are checked that are unchecked. So just follow that same list. And we'll go ahead and click finish. You'll see it's connecting to my base as a serial number here. I don't think it's gonna work because I don't have satellites, I'm inside, but normally it would go through that and say base started successfully. I'm just going to click OK. Now that's it. We got our base started. Now we're ready to get our rover out or our equipment out, and we can get those connected to our base and start going to work. Thanks for watching.